here in New York at mainland conference, and we have here Graham, who is founder of Sino Global Capital, a venture fund which invested early in such companies as FTX, Polygon, Solana, and many other big ones. Great to have you here, Matthew.
Pleased to be here with you today at mainnet.
So can you tell us about your background and how did you get involved into crypto space?
Sure, so my origin story is a emerging markets fintech banker with a China competency specifically. And so Bitcoin had been my hobby kind of very early on, and there were a couple attempts to integrate my hobby with my professional life, starting in 2013, actually, when I had a big client, one of the largest telecom manufacturers in the world, was my client as an investment banker. And so,
were they in China?
In China, yeah. And so the CEO was him and a professor from Harvard, I think it was, and me. And so I had a reputation as a very creative banker, and he said, what's your best off the wall, your best crazy idea for me? This is in 2013. And so I explained the concept of Bitcoin, and I explained that it was a market that would probably not generate material revenue in 2013, 14, or 15 for him, but that it was something that was going to be enormously important in future years. And then I pitched him on the concept of having a hardware-software combination solution for Bitcoin power users. That was my best off-the-wall idea in 2013. And I remember very distinctly, very kind of an intimidating guy, very, very big presence, and he turned to me, and it was me and the Harvard professor, and he said, that is the worst idea I have ever heard in my entire life.
Oh, really?
So of course he was exaggerating a little bit, but he hated the idea. So that was my first attempt at taking my hobby and making it my work. But then of course later I continued to get increasingly involved, and then with the emergence of Ethereum, that was the moment when I realized actually this story is a 10,000 times bigger story than we had been talking about, because now we're talking about programmability and intelligence combined with technology and money. This is a much, much bigger story, and I was very convinced that this was going to be the biggest thing since I was convinced that this is the next internet moment, as I still am today. So, as with many of us, it was increasing involvement and then kind of like all at once, okay, this is my life now.
So, how did you start Sino Global Capital?
Sure, so as I mentioned, I was a emerging markets fintech banker, and so I led the international business for one of the top firms in China, but really the next step was to be, I guess, to go to a bigger firm with a larger AUM, or alternatively, the next step would be to start my own shop. And so I made that decision in 2015.
So, did you start with your own funds, or did you attract outside capital to your funds?
Sure, so we started with our own funds. And so our initial investments were from our proprietary fund. And then of course now we have our institutional fund, which is a co-GP with FTX. And actually we're super excited because we already have our first unicorn out of this fund, even in this challenging macro environment. So that's layer 0. I'd have to go back and check, but I think that's like our 9th or 10th unicorn. So we're pretty excited.
Back then, there were not that many projects on the market. So how did you define whether to invest, what would be good investments or not?
Sure, so crypto is a very complicated space. I like to think about it like this. If you were to put us in a tank with traditional VCs, we would be the most aggressive fish in the tank, probably. But when you compare us to other crypto investors, we're pretty conservative. So, which I think if you're in a crazy industry and you're the conservative person in the room, small c conservative, I think that kind of is where you want to be. So for us, we don't feel like we have any pressure to invest or not invest. That was the case when we had our proprietary fund, and it's the case with now that we have LPs. We wait and we look for best of breed founders with distinct visions that we think that we can invest in a long-term, high-trust way. And so we wait for those opportunities.
So what's your current narrative? Are you focused on any specific spheres within crypto, blockchain, or you're industry agnostic in this way?
Sure. So I think that obviously it's a challenging macro environment, so there are some complicated factors. But in addition to the challenging macro environment, I think one of the issues that we've seen in the last year is that as an industry on the engineering front, we got a little bit ahead of our skis. What I mean by that is we built out increasingly specific, highly engineered functions that there wasn't necessarily available liquidity to support. So therefore, what I am interested in seeing is products and services that are conducive to bringing on institutional or retail liquidity in some fashion. That's more in kind of a DeFi context, but similarly, we're looking for other things that are conducive to mainstream adoption. So that's the first thing. And then I think the second thing is sometimes we start with frequently in the industry, we start with a crypto first mindset. And I think we actually need to reverse that. We need to be thinking about products that are fundamentally useful in and of themselves, and then they have crypto behind the scenes as a way of accelerating adoption or engagement or functionality, something like that. So for example, with Sino Games, with our 3 games that we're launching, Tearing Space, My Animal Friends, and Thalassa, we thought the issues with Web3 games, with crypto games thus far, have been, number one, the games aren't fun enough. And number 2, the economies surrounding the games aren't long-term and sustainable. So we focused on working. We bought a couple gaming studios, a couple development teams, and we focused on taking world-class game designers and engineers that know how to build a good game, that know how to build a fun game, and then we have crypto within the game to enhance the experience. The game is the point rather than the crypto being the point. And so we think that this kind of mindset is what is critical for us to take the next stage of adoption, so we can have people like my mom and my sisters that are very, very smart but not highly technical, for them to be able to use crypto rather than engineers and esoteric peoples, which is kind of where we are as a community today.
And you're focusing on emerging markets, Asia specifically, China, India?
Not Asia specifically. So we are focused, full stop, on emerging markets. We like to think that we are already the best in the world at emerging market competency within our industry. So it's not just Asia, that was our origin story, but from Egypt to Malaysia and everywhere in between, Middle East, North Africa, and India, and Singapore, and Greater China, all the cool places, we are able to bring our portfolio companies to those markets with boots on the ground and with experts in those markets. And we, in our view, this can be critical for project acceleration and even success. We've seen many instances of this. Famously, the Philippines was the catalyst, one of the principal catalysts behind the success of Axie, but also, for example, STEPN more recently. I'm not quite sure if it's widely known, but probably half of the users in the initial phase for STEPN were from Greater China. So these markets can be enormously important for the success of projects, and we are best in the world at being able to bring our portfolio companies to these idiosyncratic but critical markets.
Yeah, and as well, you've gone through through a few cycles. So how do you see the state of current market, and when you may see the next bull market?
I don't really care about short-term market cycles and things like that. Price go up, price go down. I actually think bear market's the best time to invest. I think bear market is where you make your money, and bull market is where you find out how much money you made. So I am very comfortable with the current market climate. That's where we see the true builders, people grinding away, rather than, I don't know, buying yachts or whatever. And but ultimately, I think zoom out, and just like we used to say, software is eating the world. Now crypto is eating the world, and this is going to be an enormously important story for many, many years to come. So whether the price goes up or down today, I honestly couldn't care less.
And can you share some of your recent investments in Sino Global?
Sure. So we're very excited about SWE as one of our recent portfolio companies, a new public blockchain that came out of some of the research teams at Facebook. We're extremely excited about that. And like I said, bear market is for building and bear market is for investing too. So we are very actively looking at projects every day.
Great. Thank you for sharing your thoughts and expertise with us.
Thank you so much for having me here today.